on the back of one of my glasses in the back of the cab of my truck. Because of the adventures that I've been involved in, and me being a woodsman and being out in the woods a lot, because of the sounds coming from the coyotes and the wolves up in Land Between the Lakes, I was inspired to put a picture of a wolf with a Native American feather going into the wolf, and down below the wolf I put a weeping wolf. The weeping wolf. You may be asking, Juby, what exactly does the weeping wolf mean? Christ talked about the wolf in the Bible several different times, illustrating the wolf as it being a dark, evil, demonic entity. Christ also talked about he who shall seeth the wolf coming and fleeth is nothing more than a harlot or a coward, because he seeth the wolf coming, and the wolf scattereth the sheep. You know, whenever you stand up against the wolf, there's going to be intense moments that's going to happen in your life. Regardless whether it was the intense moments that happened in my life in 1983 in Kenton, Tennessee, or the intense moments that happened in my life leading into the beginning phases of the Windmill Ministries in 1988 during Ronald Reagan's administration, or other intense moments that has happened again and again and again pertaining to me being an advocate for peace, but at the same time being an advocate for our United States military. When you stand up against the weeping wolf, the supernatural entity that is a evil entity, you can expect to go through various situations that sometimes is very, very displeasing to the human eye as well as to what you hear. What has went on now in less than a week here in America is one of those horrifying, displaying moments of hearing the weeping wolf. A matter of fact, it got so intense yesterday, I just packed everything up and I went to Reelfoot Lake and I went to the Mississippi River. For some reason, I take a calmness by being around water. It doesn't matter if it's moving water or settled water. And just took a sigh of relief away from the TV set pertaining to all this hostility and all this violence and all this aggressiveness. Last night, whenever I come back in, turn the TV on, and I see where there's a major outbreak over in Sacramento, California, which is give or take about an hour away from where my niece and her children live. And now I've just now woken up within the past 10 minutes, hadn't even got a cup of coffee in me yet. And I'm sitting here watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, how can I express this to my viewers to where just possibly maybe that they will understand what's going on in the supernatural world. I have used this illustration before and I'll use it again. It says very, very clearly in the Bible that in the last days Satan will rise up in great wrath because he knoweth that he has been defeated. He knoweth that his time is short. he knoweth that this competition that he throwed himself off into back years ago towards challenging the kingdom, he is soon to have a reckoning with, pertaining to his bad deeds. On the way home last night, I thought about stopping off in various churches, and one of the things that come into my mind was, I don't want to go to anybody's church and then preach about their organization. I couldn't tell you how many times that I have went to the Pentecostal assembly and then want to preach about the Pentecost. Or you go to the Church of Christ and they're the only church. Or you go to Catholicism and they preach about Catholicism. Or you go to the Methodists and they preach on Methodism. Or you go to the Baptists and they preach on Baptism. Jesus didn't preach on none of those things. Jesus preached on hell and the kingdom. He didn't define his ministry in different categories towards compartmentalizing this one from that one and that one from this one. It was good versus evil. Evil versus good. As we sit and watch these unfolding pictures that has occurred just within the past 72, let's say the past 5 days, it will be disturbing to a lot of my viewers because it's not good. And it contradicts anything in the Bible where it defiably recognizes that there will be peace upon to the earth before the end of time. There will be a great moment of an outpouring of God's Holy Spirit to the point that there will be a peace, a covenant of peace that will come forth in the last days before the opening of the second, third, and fourth seal. There's actually 7 seals. But what we're seeing the manifestation of is the weeping wolf that's crying out in rage and in anger. What we're seeing the manifestation of, not just yesterday, but also today, is an entity that is crying out because this entity knows that it is a failed entity. It has failed not just the people, but it has failed in the supernatural world too as well. So because of it, we're seeing the manifestation of biblical Bible prophecy coming true right in front of our very eyes. Towards in the last days, we will see Satan rear up or rise up in great wrath, because he knoweth his time is short. I'm just 59, which is to some people ancient, old. But I remember a little bit about the civil rights movements towards what went on during the Vietnam oppression and etc. And there was clashes back then in various places. There was. It wasn't just in one particular area pertaining to the civil rights movement. But I don't think that I remember it being quite as intense as what it is today. In city after city after city after city, including the White House, that has not been exposed to this type of demonic, negative, wicked, immoral horror that has unfolded, that has unleashed upon to this land just within the past week. I realized that the recipe of the pandemic, the coronavirus, COVID-19, has basically been the cherry on top that has caused the breaking point in a lot of people's lives, pertaining to jobs being taken, health being taken, loved ones being taken, things being broken. Now, it appears that our future has been broken. A broken nation, a broken country, a broken people, a broken system. If there's ever been a time that we needed to unify and put aside our differences and stand together in unity, in sovereignty, it is today, towards being united in one certain cause, which is the cause that Jesus Christ taught his disciples to teach others. Just as it speaks of in the first 4 chapters of Revelations, for he has not yet found our works perfect, to go back and do thy first works over again, or he will throw this nation and this planet off into great tribulation. That is where we're heading, folks. If we don't stop and analyze what is going on all throughout this great nation and throughout this planet, we are heading towards one of the darkest moments known to mankind. And if that's where people want to go, which I'm sure there's a lot of them that do, because they've done given up on themselves, they've done given up on God, they've done given up on any type of hope for tomorrow. But let's not let those people influence our dreams, our desires towards what the true Creator has inspired us to be. Yeah, I took a break from it yesterday. I went to Reelfoot Lake and I watched a beautiful, beautiful sunset while texting Judge Tommy Moore here in Weakley County. Thinking to myself, there has to be more to life other than brutality and violence and hardship and horror. Sometimes even the best of us knows when to retreat rather than go through defeat. You must know when to retreat rather than go through defeat. And if it means backing up and regrouping, then that is what we must do as a society. Because the things that we're seeing unfold into this nation is not godly. It is not pleasant to look at. It is not of the Lord Jesus Christ. It is of the devil. It is of Satan that has caused, that has ambushed, that has held hostage good intent, that is now turning it into a bad, bad deal. So as you watch these pictures unfold, please do not be over emotional in thinking that this is doom and gloom and that this is the end of the world as we know it. Because it is not. The Bible that I read tells me that greater is He that is within us than he that is within the world. The Bible that I read tells me that He would be with us even until the ends of the earth. The Bible that I read tells me that the true meek, the true godly at heart will be those who inherit the earth. So as you watch these pictures, as they're being displayed in a negative way, please remember that there is another side to the coin. There's another side to prosperity. There's another side to happiness. There's another side to peace and utopia, other than what you're fixing to see. In Jesus' name, we ask for calm. Calm throughout this nation, calm throughout our states, calm throughout our neighborhoods, and calm throughout our lives. We're asking for calm. And we're asking for people to go back and do thy first works over again before it is too late and God does throw this thing off into a great, great tribulation. That is something that none of us want to see. I don't care how demented, how mean-spirited, how cruel, how insensitive that you are. You do not want to see the great tribulation. Whenever God comes back in his kingdom and resurrects all the saints out of this unpleasantness and basically cast fire upon this planet towards devouring and consuming everything that is presently standing upon the ground. You do not want to see great tribulation. What we want to see is a revival, is a mighty movement of God through the windmill ministries that has been begging for 30 plus years for people to listen to. 30 plus years. And now it has resorted to this. So as you watch this program, please note that there is another side to the coin other than horror and vicious, outlandish actions that is on a violent, displeasing behavior.
Coming up, breaking overnight chaos coast to coast. Violence breaks out for a 6th night in a row over the death of George Floyd. In Louisville, one demonstrator shot and killed, and around the country, destruction as looters break in and burn down businesses.
They were not here to protest. They were here to destroy Atlanta.
This morning, officials urging people to stay home.
We cannot afford to lose anyone else.
As new images emerge showing some signs of hope and peace. Today, Monday, June 1st, 2020. And good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Today. It's Monday morning, and we're glad to have you with us. A lot of folks are just waking up, and unfortunately, it's a morning of sadness in this country. I'm here in New York City's Union Square downtown, which has really been the focal point of protests over the weekend here and in Brooklyn, all around Manhattan. Craig's in Washington, D.C., where the situation was very, very similar, including right outside the White House. And Hoda holding down the fort, as always, in the studio. Good to see you all.
Good to see you guys. And Craig, I'm really excited about someone who you interviewed in just a little bit. I don't know if you guys saw the video, but there was a sheriff in Michigan who was kind of nose to nose with protesters, and after talking with them, putting his baton down, putting down his protective gear, they chanted, "Walk with us," and he did. And so, Craig, you're going to have a pretty incredible interview with this sheriff coming up.
We could all use a little hope this morning, right? Before we get to all of that, though, how about your news at 8 on a Monday morning? We are just a few feet away from the White House in Lafayette Square, and the cleanup effort has started here after a night of unrest and violence. In fact, the small building was on fire just 30 minutes ago. Firefighters have gotten that under control. They're also cleaning up the graffiti on one of the oldest churches in this city, St. John's Church, behind this fire truck. The escalating violence that overshadowed those peaceful demonstrations this weekend were met with curfews, arrests, and massive displays of force.
Overnight, unrest across America reaching a boiling point. The death of George Floyd and the conduct of the Minneapolis police officers involved sparking another round of protests nationwide. Here in the nation's capital, violence taking place just steps from the White House.
You can see that fire that's been set just in front of the White House outside Lafayette Park.
In more than a dozen states, the National Guard was called in to help restore order. In Louisville overnight, a man was shot and killed after shots were fired toward the police officers and National Guard members during protests. The chief of police saying officers and soldiers returned fire. The identity of the man who was shot has not been released.
This is just the opposite of peaceful protest. There's no doubt that our great nation was built upon people with different opinions, different outlooks, people that wanted to debate towards what was the best way to go, whether or not it was to the far right or the far left. And we as a society have weaved our way to where we are today, towards being one of the greatest nations in the world. But this, what you're looking at, is not peaceful protesting. This is nothing more than anarchy. This is nothing more than a group of people that gets together that wants to bring harm and hurt to society in one form or another. This is not what we as a nation are supposed to be and what are to be. If we have disagreements, we talk about those disagreements. We debate those disagreements, but we don't get out and vandalize property to bring more hurt and harm to the situation. This property was vandalized whenever I first come back here, David and I, because we put graffiti out here on the southern wall pertaining to honoring our military towards building a memorial out here for that in which what my father went through during World War II, recognizing the 75th anniversary of World War II. My father was stationed up in Washington State with the 2nd Infantry, and on the way to one of the great battles in World War II, I don't know for sure if it was the Battle of the Bulge or 2 or 3 other major conflicts, but his infantry that he was with, called the Chiefs, all of them got killed except him, because he had a medical emergency come up in his life, and he had to have appendix taken out while he was in Germany. Well, whenever he got back on active duty, he found out that everyone that he had served with had been killed. And he had to hook up with another infantry out of Virginia, or West Virginia. This property was vandalized again and again and again. And we got documentation and records to prove it, towards who the perpetrators was that was doing the vandalizing. In addition to those that know who they are, that tried to create havoc here simply because of David and I going to build a memorial in recognizing our great heroes. To see this on an open display of what we're seeing right now, with young women and men that are resorting to violence and hostility is not who we are as a whole. It has never been who we are as a whole. So please, please do not think for 1 second that what you're witnessing and what you're seeing is either normal or right, because it is not. Anytime you bring harm and hurt into an individual's life, it is not what the system was built around. And I realize, I'm not stupid, that the system has been broken. That was the main reason why that we put up the broken cross out here. Understanding that the system was broken. That changes needed to be made. Changes throughout this great nation. But this is not the way to make them. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. Because all that's going to happen is that you're going to exacerbate the problem, and the problem is now going to even become a worse problem. So please, please, as you watch these programs on TV, do not allow for it to sink into your heart and into your mind in thinking this is what we must do. We must cause havoc and hardship, mayhem, anarchy, and get out here and start doing the same thing. Because this is not appropriate, it's not right, and basically what's going to happen to you is that you're going to be like these individuals that you're looking at right now. You're going to wind up being apprehended and thrown into a ugly, deep, dark hole with a bunch of other brute, ugly people that you're going to have to be subject to diseases and subject to an environment that will not be a pleasant one, to say the least, on. When you're sleeping on cold, hard mats and steel and concrete because our jails is already overfilled to begin with, and you're going to be subject to being right beside somebody that is basically got AIDS or coronavirus or some other type of bad sickness, now you're subject of getting sick yourself because now you're in an environment with a bunch of sick people. So please, please do not resort to violence. Violence is not the answer. It has never been the answer towards a nation regrouping. And yes, we need to regroup. We need to regroup, just like yesterday. Me going and watching one of the most beautiful sunsets that I've witnessed now in some time. Towards becoming in tune with nature. Yes, we need to regroup, regardless of what way that you regroup. I don't care if it's reading a book. I don't care if it's sitting around a good cozy campfire. I don't care if it's getting a tent and going camping somewhere in a park. I don't care if it's going on a walk, or going down by the ocean, or going up into the mountains, or just doing like I done towards going to a nice lake, Reelfoot Lake, and spending 2 or 3 hours away from the TV. We have to regroup, but we're not going to do it in a violent, hostility form.
Nationwide, businesses burned to the ground, police filling the air with tear gas, cars reduced to smoke and ash as looters stormed shops and stores. More than 100 protests and rallies took place from coast to coast. In Seattle, this video appearing to show an officer put his knee on the neck of someone being taken into custody before another officer steps in.
I realize that we're no longer dealing with the same society as I was adjusted to growing up here in Northwest Tennessee. We're basically dealing with a Jerry Springer society, to the point that people actually find pleasure in seeing other people be harmed or hurt or bring pain and agony and sorrow into other people's lives. I realize the type of people that we're dealing with, but at the same time, we're still people. We're still human beings, and we need to treat one another as human beings. We do not need to resort to this type of hostility and this type of brutality, because eventually what's going to happen is a bunch of innocent people are going to wind up being hurt or possibly even killed. These officers played a big risk in killing somebody in this type of resistance. And I realized that maybe the situation needed to be diffused. I realized that maybe they felt like that their lives was in danger. But to ram a group of people like this is not the right way of doing this. Once more, people are going to keep on until a bunch of innocent lives are going to be dismantled and they're going to be taken. We're already dealing with the pandemic pertaining to the coronavirus. Now we're adding insult to misery towards dealing with another pandemic pertaining to police brutality and the people acting out the way that they're acting out. This is not of God. This is not of a godly source towards us settling our differences in this type of way.
The mayor defending the officers involved.
I also want to emphasize that situation was created by a group of protesters blocking and surrounding a police vehicle.
On Saturday, Mayor Bill de Blasio's own daughter arrested during citywide protests, according to a senior NYPD official. Dozens of cities installing curfews over the weekend, including Minneapolis, in an effort to clear the streets and ease tension.
I will beg you, please stay home.
Chicago's mayor echoing what so many are feeling.
This is a time for us to unite. We have to turn our pain into purpose.
That unity on display in Kansas City as an officer and protester shared a warm embrace, while thousands in Denver laid on the ground for 9 minutes chanting, "I can't breathe," in honor of Floyd, and tensions running high in the nation's capital.
What do they tell you that they want?
They want to be fair. They want stuff to be fair.
But it was also on these streets of Washington, amid the chaos, that I found the father trying to teach his son about peace.
There's always another way. So that's all I want him to see. We don't have to retaliate with anger. We retaliate with love. That's why we're down here.
I am one of the first ones that will step up to the plate, being the 99 percenters, helping to represent the 99 percenters, in telling you that the system has been broken and the things that are going on are not fair, pertaining to loss of jobs, pertaining to loss of insurance, pertaining to us being $25+ trillion in debt, pertaining to us being 2.3 million incarcerated prisoners, either in state, local, or federal institutions. The way that the system has bombarded this ministry in wanting to destroy peace and protect Satan. I'll be one of the first ones to tell you that the system is broken and it is not fair. It's not only not fair to the Christian society, but it's not fair to society in general. And this is a wake-up call for all the politicians to reevaluate their stance towards what that they have brought into an alliance in regard to this unfairness that has been unsettling and has been manifested itself in little bitty entities here and there, back and forth, for the past 30 years to the point of where we are today. I'll be one of the first ones to tell you that the system is corrupt, the system is broken, and the system is unfair. But lashing out in a violent hostility type form in this brutality force is not the way to do this, because it's only going to add insult to misery. There has to be a calm. We're going to have to back up and regroup. Just like me going to the lake yesterday. Whatever it takes for you to back up and revent and think this thing through, then go do it. But do it in a peaceful, tranquility type form. This is destructive. This is self-destructive to a nation that's going through anything like this. And it ain't just here in America. It's all over the world where we're seeing these uprisings, these major standoffs between the people and the officials. And you're going to have to stop it, because all you're doing is making it worse.
Amen to that. It should be noted that the demonstration here in Washington, and this is the case around much of the country as well, those demonstrations were largely peaceful. In fact, it was peaceful here until the sun went down. This morning, though, there is still that tear gas in the air. Rubber bullets were used last night. Those flash bombs also used by police to disperse the crowd. Mayor Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., telling me last hour they expect to have another citywide curfew tonight, and they are also expecting more demonstrations as well. Savannah?
All right, Craig, thank you. And Santa Monica, California was placed on overnight curfew last night after a sudden explosion of violence yesterday. And I'm joined now by Police Chief Cynthia Renaud to talk about the events that played out and what the future might hold. Chief, good morning to you. I'm glad you're with us. You know, you had mostly peaceful protests, but things really devolved in a hurry. What happened? How did it escalate?
Yes, we had peaceful protesters in large numbers, and we were there to act their rights to protest and support them in that. There was a separate group that came in, and we ended up with two groups, one of peaceful protesters and one of people that loot and conduct crimes in the city. That group was large, and it was both on foot and mobile coming into the city through vehicles. So it was quite a crowd to work with and control, and it took a large deployment.
You're breaking up a little bit, so forgive me if you just answered the question, but there was some criticism that the peaceful protesters faced a larger police presence in Santa Monica than those who were doing the looting and the vandalism and that kind of thing. What do you say to that?
So the crowds at the intersections, I don't know how visible it was on the media, but our police officers were taking bottles and were having things thrown at them. so interspersed with that crowd, there was violence in there as well. And we couldn't abandon the intersections and leave that open. I think the best example I can give is our community members, our Santa Monicans who were there peacefully protesting, saw what was occurring in the crowd, and at one point early on, they had held hands and formed a line in front of the officers. And so there was definitely violence, both interspersed with them, along with other cars coming into the city with people intent on looting. So it was two groups, and for a substantial amount of time, the violence were also interspersed with the nonviolent protesters as well.
You know, Chief, it's such a strange situation because, of course, the officers are asking to police a protest that is about police brutality, about racism in the system. When you look at what happened to George Floyd and you see these demonstrators pouring onto your streets and streets around the country, as a police professional, what message do you receive? What are you hearing and learning from this moment?
So, as so many police chiefs have done, we have talked with our communities and been very honest about how we feel about the situation, and that we condone what happened, and that we understand the grieving and the feelings, and we share that with them. Police departments, mine included, have worked very hard to train officers, to dialogue with our community, to create relationships, and we'll continue to do that. And so I think here, speaking for California and definitely for Los Angeles County, there has been a strong statement from police chiefs as to what happened so many miles away from us, and that it's not condoned, it's not accepted or permitted here, and we work tirelessly to make sure that that doesn't happen here.
Chief Cynthia Renaud of Santa Monica, I know you've got a busy day ahead of you. Thank you very much for your time and your perspective. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Over to you.
All right, Savannah, thank you. We have got the news covered, and I think it's something we could all use right now. How about a little morning boost? We've seen stories from Minneapolis this weekend about people reaching out to each other with acts of kindness. Well, here's what happened when one low-income housing unit put out a call for food donations.
Whoever wants it, so tell everybody, anybody who needs food, come down here and take as much as they can use.
The donations, they overflowed. People responded. They brought boxes and bags of free groceries. There was so much that the organizers told people to get on social media, tell their friends, come on down. We have what you need. Acts of kindness right there, Savannah.
Oh, so lovely. And I've got another one that really fits in these times. A man named Sean Dromgogle. He has lived in Nashville for a really long time, but because of everything that's been going on, he said he was afraid to just even go outside to walk his dog because he is a black man. Well, he posted about it on his neighborhood social media app. Well, first, one neighbor called and said, I'll walk with you, and then another, and another. And before long, about 50 members of his community were out walking with Sean and his dog. He said, I was scared to walk alone, and now look who's behind me. Look who has my back. Oh. It's just neat to see more of that, don't we?
Yeah. By the way, it's a beautiful image. We should to leave right there with. Coming up, guys, more images of hope emerging from a difficult weekend across the country.
I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade, not a protest.
Interview with the sheriff being praised for the way he dealt with demonstrators in Michigan. He walked with them. But first, these messages.
The Pro-Go. A good time to get a check of the weather from Al. Good morning, Al.
Monday morning.
Space 18 hours after the Falcon 9 took off from Cape Canaveral.
Bob and Doug, welcome to the International Space Station after your spectacular rendezvous and docking of the first Crew Dragon vehicle.
Well, that's going to do it for now. For some reason, my electricity just blinked off, and I'd have to give my TV set time to reboot. Thanks again to my viewers. Once more, we're living in trying times right now. The Bible says that in the last days, that perilous times will be upon us. And we're definitely in dangerous, perilous times right now. So please, if you get a hold of this particular video, we're asking that you take a more positive, peaceful, loving approach pertaining to people disagreeing, because we can all agree to disagree with each other and still walk away without throwing blows and without becoming enemies. Coming here from the Windmill Ministries at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. We want to thank you for allowing for us to be part of your life in a more productive, peaceful world of living in for all of us. Thanks again, and good luck to all of us, and shalom.